Welcome, everyone. This is once again your host, Shailesh, bringing you live today all the topics that we took. But before we get into that, I want to wish everyone a 2025 a Happy New Year. It's just a number, it's just a year, but it is still happy moments for every single who is listening to us. Because today, I have the pleasure to bring on this New Year's, the start of the new year, is an amazing person all the way from British Columbia. But we are going to discuss a lot of things, and we don't know how to discuss a human journey or a human life. So here is an example of a real human coming and talking to us on a beautiful journey that we all have to live, irrespective whether we like it or we don't like it. So let's get into this uncovering of the unknown life journey that we all have to live. And to express that, to have a visionary leader like Leanne Campbell, all the way from British Columbia. I welcome you, Leanne, for this amazing topic of a life journey that we're going to discuss with you. But also, we are going to do a lot of things about the soul culture because we call about different cultures. We talk about many things, but what is soul culture and how does it really fits into our life? So, without any delay, to all the listeners, welcome Leanne Campbell, a visionary leader, a teacher of Shiva Shakti, yoga, and Reiki. Leanne Campbell is the founder and head teacher of Shiva Shakti Reiki School, but she is offering transformative courses, and we all need transformation from every single moment from time to time. So we are going to talk about a lot of things and how us conscious living and how the community that we all live with, and we have to bring them together to live that together. And that's all our preachings as a human, who we are. So let's get into that. Leanne, welcome for this amazing episode, and thank you very much for taking this time for us to do all the way from British Columbia. I am in New Zealand, but this is the world that we live in today. What a fantastic 2025. Let's get into this first. Like, who is Leanne Campbell? Let's see, as a human, how do you describe yourself? And I would love to know a little bit about you from you. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot said there. And, doing podcasting for a long time, I always think about being on the flip side and how
Yeah.
much I ask questions and how
Mm,
much I expand with either somebody that's with me or around me or watching. So,
mhm,
first of all, Happy New Year, like you said. Mondays are kind of like a reset for me all the time, and it's a very special day for me out of the blessings of Shiva
mhm,
and being an instructor of yoga, because
mm.
it's a day where the beginning of the week was always written in the Mahaparana that that's where we reset. And
Right.
because we're in the new year, we're having a reset, an opportunity where, the mind can take a plunge of shift and change of the ordinary way of thinking and looking at life
Mm,
and recentering, probably going over goals from the previous year and kind of figuring out, well, what is it that I learned about myself or who am I?
mm,
So this question you had, the first question about soul culture, it's been something along my journey, starting yoga at age 15.
mhm,
And that was just to lose weight. We're young, we have eat, drink, and be merry philosophies. I grew up with a family of seven, and my father had 13 kids in his family, and my mother had seven in hers. So, these big families come from a lot of repressions of making sure that food was on the table.
mm.
And that's where it also got overexpanded. It wasn't really like a yogi birth. It was more like a beautiful, loving comfort, Catholic background I grew up with.
Right.
So to cleanse my body at age 15, I started something. My sister was like, oh, here's a VHS. Go start this opportunity to explore your body with a meditative practice. And I started doing that, from a very young age of early morning, like
Mm,
around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And knowing or unknowing, years later, figuring out that us actually when to do yoga became a very interesting
mm.
alignment for me, knowledge-wise.
Sure.
But yeah, those natural things like cardio and yoga and like wanting to lose weight, there was a natural alignment years later when I became a yoga certified teacher that I look back at this what happened to me
Mm,
unknowingly,
right.
right? All the symptoms that are written in the ancient wisdom and culture started to become my whole life. So, soul culture, where we stress upon the soul itself, is discovered through these practices. It's also discovered more when we're in atmospheres where we pray. There's a lot more where the mind slows down and we're trying to identify this, unknown thing, like you said, the unknown aspect of
Yeah.
what's within this body mind.
Mm. So how do you see that when, let's go back to the childhood when Leanne, what was Leanne as a child or as a kid or as a, like conscious soul that she became, and then what she is today? That journey is amazing to uncover the going back to the source as a child. Was Leanne exactly what it is now, or she has transformed into many, many layers? So let's begin with your childhood. What was your mindset? What was the environment? As you rightly said, you grew up in an environment with a Christian environment and with certain beliefs or certain baggages that you come along with. But also, then you uncover your own as a child, as an exploring child. And some don't explore, some are remained as okay, instruct or guidance. They require guidance all the time and they go best for the guidance. And some are exploring, fearless to explore, and then they make others who are guiding them tell them that this is who I am, you know, and so guide me now just the way I am, not the way you want me to become. So what was that journey as a child? What was you? Who were you as Leanne as a child
Mm,
that you
well,
remember of?
my father's angel.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, my mother and father had a lot of faith in Jesus and angels and prayer. I mean, with bigger families growing up, prayer in church was a very big part of every day,
Mm,
and using the rosary and praying with the rosary on a regular basis. And um, that was imprinted in their childhood to get through life as a eat, drink, and be merry philosophy of how to live a beautiful Christian life.
mm-hmm.
And so that's what they knew growing up. And so I was their byproduct of their merge of their love and very joyful child with a very big family. We were exposed to every every uncle and aunt had at least 3 to 5 children each.
Right.
So multiplied by 13 and seven on the other
Mm,
side, like we were always engaging and interacting with bloodline,
mm,
and sharing and learning and growing and helping each other. So I think that part of the Christianity of, procreation and all that stuff, like I was exposed to that really young.
mm,
I think it was probably one of the biggest beautiful things of Catholicism. Um, Also, that was something at that age, being young, we had left that circumstance. And so things changed once we
mm,
left that circumstance. My father got work in another province. And then it got harder. And then it got ugly.
mm-hmm.
So the ugly side was, when it's eat, drink, and be merry philosophy, there's alcohol involved, there's overeating of food, there's, everybody kind of working in this circle of like-mindedness. But once one is taken out of such a big place of help and service and love and
Yeah,
goes into it alone, those habits are a little bit different when you're alone.
absolutely.
And the lack of help and support, and then the clashing, and then I was watching, little fights of my childhood when we left that place. Little fights were normal, turn
Mm,
into massive traumas
mm,
and ugliness.
mm,
And so, there was always a cycle of healing and love, but that's, I think, also where the overeating started to happen for myself, where I
mm-hmm.
was emotionally eating
Right.
to try to compensate for the pain of my surroundings.
Mm,
And that's the pain of life. There's the pain of life of my father working 12 to 16 hours a day, my
mm,
mother maintaining 5 kids
mm,
without all of that abundance that was in Nova Scotia of like 300 family members.
right.
So, you go from two extremes and you're a child with all this fun, and then you
Mm,
have, exposure to culture and rituals too. So in the East Coast, it's far more white privilege oriented, and then you
mm,
go into Ontario where it's multicultural. and that was 1986. So we're looking at a totally different world.
Sure.
And so yeah, so reality is we're facing those things too. And as children, we don't even know what that all means yet. We're still like going to school to learn mathematics. We're learning English. We're learning this,
Mm.
this, this, this. So being faced with, understanding what is childhood, what is joy, who am I?
Yes.
um, we're all vulnerable and pure. We're just
Absolutely.
pure vessels of learning in those
Mm.
ages, right? And then after the brain's fully developed, or we start having symptoms of like self-discovery or who
Mm.
am I? Yoga was really the foundation that started it all for me at age 15. Because I
Mhm.
went from a size 16 of eat, drink, and be merry and eat my emotions of childhood traumas into a size 8 and like trying to rediscover a new body and a new mind because the vehicle, like when it was cleaned within me,
Mhm.
I started to become more receptive and sensitive to this almighty.
Wow. That's amazing. So, what was the challenges, that major challenges that transformed you into from eating to non-eating or consciousness where, okay, this is important in my journey, irrespective of whatever my circumstances and surroundings are. How did you maintain, how did you manage, or how did your awakening came that no, I want to survive in a different way. My life has to go in a different dimension. And
Mhm.
that's where you probably took those hardest decisions of life. Because giving up at a young age, at a teenage, certain things in life is like sacrificing your desires and sacrificing your loves. Whether it's food, whether it's things, whatever it is, you are sacrificing it for your own thing. And to have that mindset, to overcome those challenges, what really, really triggered for you at that point? Was it or did the peer pressure? Was it the surroundings of the friends and family or whatever it is? Or you all of a sudden realize that no, this is not who I am. This is not why I want to be. How did that mindset changed?
So the biggest thing I started to notice from the benefits of morning yoga,
Mm.
1 hour of discipline, and then cardio, and then being in love with my childhood dream of becoming a hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
Because my mom was a hairdresser, so that was just kind of like we had something to learn. We had a tool, we had a trade.
Yeah, true.
And passionate about that because whatever I wasn't allowed to do as a child, like makeup and hair and all that kind of stuff, I started having abundance of that attracting my life.
Mm-hmm.
High school, I went to a high school of 3,000 students. It was a
Mm-hmm.
college, and I had everything I could learn, like a college in high school. So you're a child and you have all this abundance. You could learn anything you want, auto mechanics, anything.
Yes.
Really blessed with a high school like that. And then losing my weight during that whole period of time and discovering myself because a lot of your high school years you are discovering, you have a choice. And I made that choice, like not to compete with that part of the world. I tried my best to love myself and to take advantage of that. And I think a lot of that honestly came from the good morals of my parents,
Mm.
good and bad that my parents were going through the trauma of leaving such a big family and then going to a different province. There was still really good foundation of their childhood and their family roots
Mm-hmm.
that was holding me together. Really, I give such big value to them, even though the trauma was also hard,
Yeah,
right? And I think that parents are parents for the first time.
of course.
So
Mm.
it's all that was, but as a child, you don't look at it like that because you're just like, well, I thought life is supposed to be, a white picket fence and a beautiful house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so when you say what were the biggest effects in there, I know now, and I do know what started to happen because of the change of the body. But if I took yoga out of the equation, it'd be just physical body stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The yoga affected me enough where I would go into the kitchen, age 17, 16. My
Mm-hmm.
mom would be cooking like the best meals, chicken, beef, pork, whatever it would be. It would
Mm-hmm.
have best flavors. She was an artist. She fed people. She put so much love into it. She was
Mm-hmm.
devoted to her family. And
Sure.
I would go in and I couldn't even walk into the kitchen anymore. So these are some symptoms in the 8 limbs of yoga, which is ahimsa, where we start to go through a connection with the soul and we
Mm-hmm.
start to really understand the inner dimensions. and the inner dimensions start to align and speak profoundly to us from within. Like certain attraction, like I'd be always attracted to going to a tree or the forest and spending a lot of time there, sitting in a tree energy, for no reason, apparently. Like, we all love nature as children, but it would
Absolutely.
amplify even more through that time in my life. And I would see myself wanting to go to sit. I would just sit, like meditation, but not know anything about it. We didn't have internets or phones with all these access at that time. So
Absolutely.
I wasn't watching programs on TV where we are right now, where people are
Correct.
meditating with millions of people in COVID. The exposure to these wisdoms in a Catholic setting and with that much control under me, it was simply one yoga DVD
Mm.
practiced regularly that had that much impact on my life.
So this life journey that we are talking today, and to understand to all the listeners and myself, Leanne, what was triggered you, like in terms of Christianity, you were bought into that environment. And then adoption is another aspect of what we see today is the yoga or the Hindu or the culture that has been. Hindu is not a religion, of course, it is a life journey, and you adopted a life journey. In also Christianity, there is a life journey, and a lot of life journeys are there in every single religion on all that. But what made you yoga as one of the things to adopt or to take it and test it or even try it when was there any pre kind of evidence that you had, that pre kind of something that somebody had influenced, or what really influenced you to get into yoga and then
Oh,
get to this?
honestly, I will like I look back at this because I look at how much I've been through since through the last 30 years. And
Mhm.
I've had to sit through gratitude for my sister, my older sister.
Right.
She was studying philosophy and she
Uh-huh.
started going out to study all religious belief systems to work on herself, to help herself heal some of her own personal traumas.
Right.
And she brought home, things like statues, pictures of Shiva, pictures of Lord Krishna, stuff like that, and like beautiful things. And your sister's in like a family setting where you're so secluded and protected with the mindset of your parents,
Hmm.
um, become interesting things, like we explore life together. If we were my dad's three angels, the three girls and my two brothers, this is kind of where our biggest influence comes from, our siblings. And especially if we have an older sibling, because an older sibling kind of leads a role. So I was always, read like I was always decorating. I was always into art. And as a teenager, I was like shifting things a lot because of like stimulating myself through the visuals around me.
Hmm.
And it was one of my art fun things to do was like collage or take pictures and create collages through my room setting. And like when I spend my time alone, I would either be doing that or studying music or whatever it may be. So um, yeah, that's where it really impacted me. My sister was a big influence, my older sister. Whether I was trying drugs or I was like smoking or I was like doing yoga, whatever it was older sister stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was kind of like a catalyst of like things that started to enter my home. And
Hmm.
being in a Catholic family wasn't really recommended. My father didn't like any of that.
Absolutely.
It was all hidden because Jesus Christ was the only way and our Lord and Savior. And I struggled with a lot of the childhood stuff that way because every Sunday I was kind of going to church with a fight before it happened and then the fight after. So I never
Right.
understood that growing up. And there was so much beautiful energy to embrace when I did go to church. I could understand what was sitting there,
Mm.
but the process was interrupted with a lot of suffering of catharsis and personal. I think a lot of personal self-healing that now I know as an adult, and I do, and I teach to other people, is
Mm.
how to get attuned into self-love and harmony with life.
Mm.
So yeah, that's just a generation of, how people survive mentally or physically and
Mm.
belief systems that have been passed down by ancestral wounds,
Yeah.
where abuse and pain were a part of the package that a lot of us in this generation now are shifting consciously,
Yes. Yes. Very
right?
well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in terms of that's what I was supposed to come that, like, when you see yourself at this point of your journey, that consciously and understandingly yourself, the importance of whatever dimensions you wanted to go. You made those transitions and changes, and you challenged in spite of the religions, in spite of the way of life, in spite of the different kinds of religion, preach different things. But you adopted a life journey that is so solely energy based and supportive and community based kind of work that you have adopted to do, which is just like mind-boggling. And that's where we are above the religion as a human. We are above the whole consciousness. When you come to us, the consciousness gives us that full power of who we are. How do you
Mm.
feel at this point of time in your journey after seeing yourself, reflecting yourself, that and now going through a phase or going through a journey that you want to create, that you want to create something out of this whole your own experience to help and support people and humans around you? How do you feel now at this point, the things that you have accepted, adopted, and want to move on with this whole concept? Where do you think it will lead to, or not just lead to, but where you would make difference every single moment of your life, not for just yourself, but for others as well? How would you put this transition for yourself, that all listeners who are listening, that they might be going through a lot of things. They might be thinking that this is not, I am a Christian, I'm a Hindu, I'm Muslim, whatever. However, is this what it is? Or what Leanne is saying, that this is what her journey is. She's not saying that you adopt this or that, but what they are learning, what we are learning from you is like, how important it is to be so transparent, flexible, open mind to adopt anything and everything in our journey as a human. Tell me something about a human journey, because you do this soul culture. And I was very much intrigued and very much interested in, this is like a religion culture, or this is like a human culture or animal culture or whatever, but this is soul culture we are talking about. And I want to uncover this aspect more in a bit in your own way. How do you describe this soul culture, and what is it going to do to you, and what does it do to humans who are, involved? All humans. It's not just one community or this community, but all communities. So it is like culture, but it is soul culture, which is like we call it humans are all spirits, or humans are all have souls. So tell me something about this soul culture in a little bit in from your own kind of angle and dimension that you see it. How do you describe this?
Well, first of all, the storyline of we talked about we should go to the place where I had a first dialogue with God alone in a room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, how would you have trust or faith on something that we can't see,
Correct.
right? But we can feel
But we
or we
can
can
feel.
relate to within our being.
Mm.
So after 5 years of doing yoga, I had obviously I was at age 19, so there's a bodily change. There's more passion and desire at those ages where we're getting our own voice. We've been exposed to enough information where we feel the confidence to work within the community. And really, depending on what we've been exposed to karmatically, financially, mentally, physically, where we are and where I was at that time,
Mm-hmm.
I'd already, done an apprenticeship as a hairdresser. I had been exposed to looking into not only my childhood angel energy from my mom and my dad, really imprinted, and
Mm-hmm.
then getting this exposure to yoga and going vegetarian on my own, and a lot of synchronicities and serendipities of studying ancient wisdoms of the Dalai Lama or Tibetan Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I started studying Tantra, and I started going to Tantra meetings with some relationships I was exploring with people and learning sacred arts of lovemaking or love connection, or how to be in those states after yoga. Because the yoga was slowing me down enough to be more present. And, there was obviously very little knowledge, right? And then these things just all start flowing, and it was like it was a natural river of even the wisdom of Christianity as a child, with the like my mom praying to Saint Michael, my mom praying to all the archangels, calling the angels in the morning. Like the vibration around me always had something
mm,
from higher realms, but they were like, more dreamlike because the integration process of that was still bombarded with pain and suffering of addiction patterns, a lack of flow in relationships too. Like there was too much resistance between personalities. So what I learned through yoga is pure observation.
mm,
And that started to build up even more when I went to my first tantric experience. I was gifted Lord Ganesha. Then I start getting into mantra therapy, and these things all started to just be a
mm,
part of, well, this makes sense. This is now making sense. So this is what they do when you go to these temples. They say this instead of hallelujah. And in
mm,
a Buddhist temple, they say Om Mani Padme Hum, or they say Namaste. And it was just the consciousness overall that was being purified through the yoga practice, which I know now at the level I am with yoga,
mm.
that was working on its own accord, right?
Absolutely.
And so through that awareness, the beauty of the self-discovery flowing through those currents
Mm,
in time and space, they had their own rhythm of showing up. And that's what we call ascension. When the soul is ascending, things just start to click.
mm,
In Zen, they call it a satori.
mhm.
So when we want to trust these knowledges, we have to look at experience. Are we experiencing something? Why did I go vegetarian from 4 years ago?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's well.
Why? I had an experience. I went in my kitchen. I'm like, Mom, like I ate that forever. I gained a lot of weight eating that. I love you. I love everything you do, but it just doesn't work for me anymore.
Right,
And
right.
it was a full no,
Yeah.
right? So when it's a full no, what is doing that?
Mm,
If that wasn't who I was prior to that, that's where when you start to study scripture or yoga or the 8 limbs of yoga, it will specifically talk about these qualities that start to help you
mm,
towards this inner union with
mm.
what we call the Shiva,
Right, right,
right?
right.
So
Yeah.
that's the only reason why this consciousness of what we know as the 5 elements of nature, this unknown, that
Mm,
which is not presence of this Shiva, has its own dialogue with us within us. So my first experience of the Shiva, or what we call Purusha, because it comes in a Trimurti aspect, which we learn in Christianity
hmm.
about Father, Son, Holy Ghost. We're
Yes.
now learning in a reflective mirror of a lot further timelines.
Mm,
Um, I think they say anywhere from 8,000 years of time prior to even maybe 32,000 years. The timeline on this, there's a lot of knowledge out there. I just know I experienced it.
right,
And
right.
I learned to trust this unknown. Now, it didn't have the name Shiva at age 19. It had a name of energy, God,
Mm, mm,
right? And what we all call God, because like I was told God exists. I
mm,
could feel a connection to God every day I woke up. I
mm,
knew that Jesus was the Son of God. I always felt the light of Jesus within my soul. I always had a connection to the Holy Spirit. I understood the difference when I was angry or sad or I was hurt. Those were all
mhm,
my emotions. That now I was like on my own, connecting with love, learning about maturity at that age.
mm,
And then one early morning, I had moved out to BC, had a change in my life, massive change. Just redirected my whole current of my life, 1999, through
mhm,
love and then through aloneness.
mhm.
And it was just a journey of self-discovery and mastery because I'd already mastered hairdressing and enough money to be on my own that I
Yeah.
had my calling out to BC from
Mhm.
Ontario.
Right,
So I found a lovely house of 5 vegetarian Buddhist women that were into
right.
yoga, everything. They were in alignment with me, and like things were just synchronicity. It was just like I was asking, I was receiving. It was just
Yeah,
lining up.
yeah, yeah.
And I also am making intention to find those things, but
Mhm,
we do work to find things and things show up. So the universe provides.
mm,
So spending time in that house with those women, I was on my own for the first time, training myself as a young woman on like, working in the community. But this time in my life of exploring love, leaving home, I had to go into myself and like discover, okay,
mm,
this yoga, this change, hairdressing, I'm in a different province. That love affair didn't work out, but I'm here. Now I'm
mhm,
in a house with 5 women. I had a little statue of Ganesha. I had a painting that when my sister went to Hare Krishna temple of Radha and Krishna swinging in a Julan Yatra. I
Mm-hmm.
had my Buddhist statues that I was given when I left hairdressing that year.
Mm-hmm.
My master teacher, he said, the Buddha has left.
Mm.
And then these were the markings. A lot of my customers were coming in, Tibetan monks. I was studying with the Dalai Lama. So the unfolding of, my career paths we're
Yeah.
going from what my mom did, what I loved doing it. It was already 6 years into it. High school, I had a chance to learn it, 4 years. Then I
Mm.
did it for a couple years after. I'd already mastered the arts, photography, model shoots, all this beautiful external stuff. But
Right.
all that internal stuff that I had changed that made me go vegetarian, it had its own voice. It was telling me, you got to go through that door. This is
Mm.
nature for you. This is where you're most happy. And this is where the body mind were having this dialogue and exploring new knowledge, exploring wisdom, exploring ancient aspects of, well, if I'm changing this way and I'm meditating now, the Dalai Lama was showing me meditation. I went for the first time to a Dalai Lama temple in Toronto prior to my move, and a powerful moment where there was a song playing at the door
Mm-hmm.
of Amazing Grace by Judy Collins.
Right.
And it was like my childhood of Christianity. It was
Mm-hmm.
like Amazing Grace walking in to Buddha. So it
Uh-huh.
was like my Jesus was meeting Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
Very profound change of
Very
energy.
profound. Yeah.
And the observer that had already been doing enough yoga that started to go into this vegetarian diet, I started to meet something which was harmonizing with silence at a depth of what yoga was giving me.
Mm-hmm.
And that pin drop beauty, the fragrance in the room, the incense,
Mm-hmm.
like the dimension of color, tankas, paintings that were done very detailed in Tibet. And then all these white women, monks, and I'm white walking in here like, wow, you're doing this with your life,
Mm.
right?
Correct.
So these things were happening when I moved out to BC and I was sitting in a room in meditation, every morning I was just doing my sun salutations, the same routine that I started when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started sitting like I
Mm.
was learning in these temples because it
Absolutely.
was became, oh, this is what I do now, not just lying down in Shavasana, but I'm going to sit in
Mm-hmm.
what they call Vipassana.
Right, right. So taking these steps, taking those, conscious decisions in life at a younger age, at your age, which normally in the modern day world that we live in, the society that we live in, we tend to adopt the current or the current situation and the current system and the current brainwash we call it, or current system that has been put embedded into us. You chose to go back into the clarity point of view of a human life or a soul that needs clarity, a soul that needs some purpose, a soul that is deeply understanding of the energies that we are born with, but we don't look into that. To do this kind of amazing at a younger age, Leanne, I feel really, really inclined to ask this question. What really have you found now after adopting these amazing whether it is Buddha, whether it's Shiva, whether it's Christianity, whether any religion, you go back to the time memorial. So are you saying, Leanne, what I am seeing today is Leanne belongs to the era or belongs to many eras, but trying to put into this current era also merge the current era as well? How do you describe this aspect of you? Because it's a deep understanding of the sacred energies that you have. It's absolutely deep when I talk to you. And but also like putting those into practice, putting those into making understanding with your own colleagues, whether it is your own other cultural people coming into your space and giving you that understanding or understanding from you is amazing. It's like something that you are embrace the spiritual path, and you are making a spiritual path for everyone. Basically, that's what I see you as. So I wanted to incline to ask this, how important it is now to you that what you have done or what you have understood, not rather than what you have done, what you have understood and which you are having this path, is important when the listeners are listening, that they may say, oh, yeah, okay, I would love to do this, I would love to do that, but how do I do it is $1 million question for everyone. But here you are. You have chosen to take certain decisions to walk that path. How do you
Mhm.
say yourself now? It's so important for all the listeners and for myself that, okay, is this a path that we all have to one day embrace or sometime in your journey embrace? And so it is important, or it is prime important to have that clarity of for your own self rather than for anyone, because otherwise human journey is nothing. It is synchronizing with many humans. But if you want to create that community aspect, you got to live that and you got to show that path. And to do that, you have to get into this deeper, deeper understanding of older versions or the newer versions, whatever we call it. How do you see that is so important and relevant in the modern day world? This question I would like to ask you, how important it is in the modern day world.
The main thing
Yeah,
is understanding the suffering of life.
right. Mm-hmm.
And what is the meaning of suffering is to know your mind.
Sure.
So, in order to understand your mind, the
Mm-hmm.
tools for transformation of mastery of it have been brought down by the masters of masters. And those methods,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through the Ten Commandments, whether it's through the eight limbs of yoga, whether it's through Sufi whirling, whether it's through doing your namaz, whether it's through reading the Bible, whatever it is, it has to be a pure element which is connected to your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And each path is according to the individual of where it's being drawn through naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Because this big empty nothing, which is creating a container of timelines of itself manifesting in timelines in creation
Mm-hmm.
through wisdom, has its own multi-dimension aspect for us to connect to it.
Right.
And how we connect to it and come through this pure observation of life as a miracle, as a gift, and as an opportunity to serve
Mm-hmm.
each other is the ultimate aspect of transforming suffering into a love affair,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So, how did I get there without my masters of masters?
Mm.
How did I get there after I naturally was my own voice? I had my two masters, my mother and my father.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
they provided was their mastery
Mm-hmm.
and whatever they could provide. But then there was the drop of silence of what this master tool yoga did for me on its own,
Mm-hmm.
which brought me into inquiry, which brought me into questioning, which brought me into finding answers for my questions so I could drop away from questions into this vastness of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that process of teaching and leading other people that, listeners could be looking for
Mm-hmm.
is what works for everybody is based on the individual's lineage within themselves of how to get there, but the methods work. Every method has yoga has been around for centuries to be a
Absolutely.
proven tool for
Mm.
transformation for discipline.
Mm. Right.
And what will it do? If you're holding your body or you're breathing, you'll be doing a breath work, which
Mm-hmm.
will slow the mind down so you can focus.
Mm.
And then what else does it do when you create more oxygen? You create positivity. So life is good.
Mm.
It also creates another awareness where when there's more positivity, you eat less damage to the body.
Sure.
So senses are in control. They're not controlling you. So the tools of the masters
Mm.
are gifts for this disaster
Mm. Yeah.
of suffering.
Yeah.
So that's it. The only way that you're going to face suffering. You can't control, you love somebody, they don't love you with the same amount, and you don't know why.
Mm.
Mommy, why doesn't that guy love me the way I love him, but I want him to be my boyfriend?
Mm. Mm.
Or I get married and then 3 years later somebody cheats on you.
Mm.
Suffering is a huge part of this gamble of life.
Mm.
And how much of it you have control over other than being a master of yourself. So the reality of what I was being driven through, mastering the body from what I was being naughty
mm,
with life,
mm,
was a byproduct of what my previous parents and grandparents have been learning. And the children are born, pure
mm,
energies are all born through these sperm and eggs so that we can evolve this soul
mm,
into being a teacher to our parents. But do we always see Jesus showing up?
mm.
Jesus showed up to his parents.
Yep,
Are
yep.
we not seeing the miracle of what we co-create with love to honor and worship and to sacrifice?
So,
And the
so
ongoing cycle, right?
yes, of course, of course. So do you think in the current system that if I had to ask you, you very well said that you focused on sufferings to understand the life rather than, but in today's system or today's world, everyone doesn't concentrate on sufferings. They just get depressed and stressed and mentally and emotionally become so much down when certain sufferings happen. Even a little suffering, big suffering happens because they are all the time focusing not on sufferings but on receiving the good things or the happiness that they are looking for or the joy they are looking for rather than getting ready for sufferings. They don't even want to know about sufferings. They just want to know how can I be enjoyable, how can I accumulate, how can I feel good, and that's all they're concentrating on. They don't understand the importance of the other side of the coin, the good and the bad, as we always say, light and the dark. But when someone concentrates on the dark side or the suffering side, obviously the goodness will always give them the blissful moments. But understanding the dark also gives you that blissful moments. And that's what people don't understand. The sufferings is also could be a blessing in disguise. So what is your message to what people are listening today? That okay, sufferings is as equally important to reflect every single time rather than just looking at positive sides or less looking, not positive, but just looking at the good things that you are aiming for or hoping for, which you haven't got it, but you are always in the mind of goodness. And when
Well,
you
the
look at that,
trust, first of all, the main trust, we'll talk about personal trust. How
yeah,
is it developed? Your parents are giving you an offering of their faith. So
right.
you're in this void of trying to take on something which is not natural.
Mm-hmm.
How do you discover your own personal aspect of faith? Is through your own question and answering. And so you have to understand borrowed knowledge can only lead you so far for you to feel secure beyond suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when I was 19, I was sitting in a room that morning.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest change in living in that house with the five women, they were all meditating and yoga. I was amplified, it was multiplied into attracting like-minded people. So then I was in an energy field, they call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was in an energy field in my house with my mom and dad, and that was the energy I was getting. But
Yep.
then now I'm in another energy house where everybody's vegetarian and they're all doing meditation. They're all frequency of like walking into a Buddhist temple
Mm,
with like-minded people who were enjoying their life and learning and growing. So that was a stage for the opportunity of consciousness to present something new to me. It had an opportunity, it had a gateway
mm,
to present something new. And that's what it did. I was literally sitting in this position, in lotus position, which now I know was my first samadhi.
mm,
And using those words, why did I go into becoming a yoga teacher? Because I couldn't escape knowing what was the tool that changed my journey or my life to present to me becoming a Buddha, for example. Like, why would my highest ranking master teacher of hairdressing say
mm,
when I left hairdressing, I needed a break?
mm,
He knew that I was a Buddha
mm,
and he knew my qualities.
mm,
These were markings on my journey to guide me, and they're invisible
mm,
because it's just the love of the individual which is passing it on. But what works between us if this God is invisible?
mm.
If God is invisible, what's the invisible working through us, offering in this reminder? Oh, here you go. Oh,
True.
here you go. Or that invisible energy through yoga and breath, which made me go vegetarian. Here you go. This is all invisible. So
Mm-hmm.
getting close to this invisible energy, understanding this invisible energy,
Mm,
whether it's taking a form like me and you do, or has a history of forms, or
Yeah.
has a history of growth, we've all seen in the holy text that it expands through time and space
Mm,
all the time, at all times,
mm,
in every moment, whether you see it or not, offering healing, love, positivity, and
mm,
transformation of the ordinariness of a human's error. To learn is to be human, is to make error.
mm.
That's why we have erasers. So
Yeah.
it comes in to give you opportunity to learn. That's life,
Mm-hmm.
to erase, and to go back to learn. And this constant cycle of learning and unlearning, right? So
Yeah.
that was the biggest change when I was sitting in that position of what I was watching other people, the Dalai Lama, all of these beautiful
Mm,
humans that were on their journey of discovering this void of energy, which we call God, because we don't see it. We know that's pretty profound that it's doing all this stuff.
yes. Absolutely.
And then it spoke to me directly.
Mm. And
And I
this
never had that.
experience,
Now I know
yeah.
it's always been in a dialogue with me, but it was direct connection in that moment. I had a beaded bracelet sitting on that Buddha statue that time, like this. I
Mm,
make these. I was making jewelry as a child too. So I had it sitting there on the Buddha stand,
mm-hmm. Wow.
literally sitting and just meditating, and that bracelet popped in the air to get my attention.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
I was like, I was feeling energy. It was me, inside of me and inside the room, but it was enhanced with power.
That's
And then I was
really,
in this state, my first state of samadhi. And now that I know that, because now I can go into samadhi any time of the day,
mm,
right? Through practice. And now I'm learning even more about higher dimensions of samadhi. So the learning is never ending.
of
The
course.
expansion is never ending. We're eternal energies.
Of course.
But the growth period from that time, the voice inside,
Mm,
it said to look. And I
mm,
was like, look where? So the only way I'm looking, straight ahead.
mm,
And I had that picture of Krishna and Radha from my sister's journey with studying
mm-hmm.
all of
Right.
this.
Mm,
And when I looked, I was in communion with this, trusting this nothing.
true.
And then for a moment, I kept looking like, where's Waldo? Look what's going on here. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
I saw the flute for the first time in Krishna's hand. Never saw it till that moment. And once I found the flute, the light switch went on inside. It confirmed. So this dialogue with silence started to become an inner love affair and an inner relationship, but very subtle,
Mm,
very powerful in that one moment of my life, which the inquirer became now from that moment. God, I know it's you. I feel you. I understand. I need knowledge.
mm,
I need a teacher, and I need to understand now that I've opened these doors from yoga, tantra, now
mm,
direct this Krishna. What is that? Who is that? I just think that they're beautiful gods. One is purple, one is yellow, whatever they are. I don't
mm,
know.
mm,
I have an idea that even Jesus was white. Maybe he's black. I don't know.
mm, mm,
But this is what was being presented to me as an
mm,
opportunity to learn and grow and to trust. And very profound and very powerful. It's something like you either trust the path or you
mm.
don't. And
Yeah,
I wasn't going to ignore that bracelet popping in the room. I didn't do that.
absolutely. Yeah. Very powerful, very profound, and very, very, I think that this is not just your life journey. It is more, as I can see all the listeners, that, I feel that this is more of an awakening or a calling from a power to perform certain things in this journey as a human. So you are in the form of a human, but you are, as you have mentioned several times, that the trust. The trust factor is can't seen. It's only there. You can't see it, but it is there. And that's the most powerful when we call it in any religion. When we go to pray or go to meditate or go to a temple or Gurudwara or Sikhs or Muslim mosque or anything, what we do over there is not to preach religion, but to have that inner peace and the trust that you have developed between yourself and the superpower that you are being embedded with in this life journey. So I think this is more of a awakening call, a more of a trust within yourself to create a trust for yourself as well, but also then to create so many things and so many understandings. So first of all, I think to develop the trust and to create a trust or to have a deeper understanding, you definitely need this openness, the open-mindedness, the freeness, the freedom to explore and not ignore as you have mentioned. Many times when you realize something, you tend to ignore rather than exploring. And that is what I see it as. Leanne, this is amazing conversation I'm having you with you. And it more probably will not end because the way I can ask you many, many, many things and many questions. But tell me something now that we are discuss a few things about your journey. How do you put this? What you do today is in your life journey, is a past with your own experiences, you have come this far. And then now you want to present this to all the communities. And you want to teach what you have learned. You have also, we are teachers, we are learners, we are students, we are teachers, all of us. How do you want to put this to all the listeners to say that, what you teach or what you give with you through your wisdom, through your experience? How do you see humans needs to be grown, not just by the age, but through their mind? And I want to ask this, like growth. We all look for growing. We all look for that one thing that I want to expand, I want to grow, but they don't understand the deeper meaning of what is growth and what is expansion. Is it just accumulating something will grow you, or is it something that you have that you call it's yours, and then you have saying that you are grown or you are expanded your life journey? How do you see this aspect of your knowledge and teachings when every community wants to grow? What is growth according to you? What does growth means for you? Through your own life journey. You have grown out of teenage with physical aspect, with mental aspect, with awareness surroundings. You have grown. And that grown, not what others listeners might say. They might want to have grow when they have something in their hand or something that they call it theirs. Then they say it is their growth. But that's not really it is, because what I hear from you is exactly more deeper and more out of the normal system that what we are they're capable of. We are capable of going out of our normal system. And that's where our growth begins. That's where our trust begins. So, how do you put this, your growth, according to you, for all the listeners who are listening, as a community growth, as a individual growth? What is growth according to you?
The greatest blessing through the
Yeah,
30 years of the yoga and many masters
yeah,
has been many fragrances of divine power.
right.
So some fragrances, like the Holy Spirit, offered me a lot of light,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
where the mind comes into a place where it feels complete freedom
mm-hmm.
to be with life in the power of presence.
Right.
So the next part of being multidimensional, when we talk about expanding into other fields of wisdom,
Yeah,
is exploring the oneness or the unity of awareness. So
right.
if we are not just one religion of wisdom,
Mm-hmm,
but if God is expanding through all because of time and space,
mm-hmm.
where is the boundary? Why is there a boundary needed or to label ourselves with one aspect of religiousness
Correct. Yeah.
because of the fundamentals of programming in the mind?
Mm-hmm.
So because of this opportunity where I was born Christian,
Mm-hmm.
this moment happened in meditation, which was really inspired by Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
And then it met Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
I'd already have been through three different dimensions.
Correct. Yeah.
So this idea about God having some limitation, I started to recognize was the way through unity
Mm-hmm.
and the way through humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But the power of presence through meditation and stillness was where Jesus said the same thing, be still and know. This was the antidote, even after 30 years of being with many masters,
Mm-hmm.
was the answer to walk the path with love.
Absolutely. Mm.
And what real love means, not just our tendency of desire and a lack of awareness, Real love meaning the power of sacred living, and sacred living meaning honor,
mm,
gratitude, humility, um, trust, very deep trust that everything works for you, not against you,
mm, mm.
no matter what through that suffering ideas. Because when we're not still, we can't observe the human error in a profound way of learning. So we mentally masturbate through ideas of what we believe suffering is.
Yeah.
So when we come to a place of stillness, we are in acceptance of humanness
Mm,
through the eyes of this greater power within us, of
mm,
this communicator that was communicating through me, that I had always had, we always have,
mm.
that we can experience through stillness. And
Absolutely.
that profoundly has moved deeper and deeper and deeper when we talk about what is samadhi,
Mm, mm,
right? So that stillness will have different experiences of when everything stops,
mm,
what am I observing? What am I observing within me? And that knowledge of the inner beauty of divineness, which we learn in yoga as meridians, nadis, energetic bodies, those things you start to trust, because we trust the doctor when it says you have organs. We trust
yes.
the doctor when it says you have this type of blood type. We
Mm,
trust the doctors that we have bones. We trust this green eyes, this tissue, everything's labeled on a piece of paper.
mm,
So, because of the profoundness of learning how to trust and be with life, also those things which are unknown, you start to trust the wisdom to know
mm.
the difference. What is that wisdom? Right?
Absolutely.
And what was being passed on by other people that had experiences,
Mm,
just like me. Like
mm,
Jesus when he said, be still and know. Where did Buddha say the same thing? He said the same thing. Where did Guru Nanak say the same thing? Where
mm,
did Shiva sit?
mm.
Krishna
Correct.
sit?
Yep.
Right? So
Right.
the stillness was the antidote
Mm,
for life force energy to then be the entertaining aspect of life, which profoundly becomes a whole other part of the beauty of creation, which we now know in the essence of the Divine Mother.
mm.
Feminine qualities, masculine and feminine. We know we have masculine and feminine in our brain.
True.
So that stillness taught me how to play with the feminine.
Mm,
It taught me how to hear my own feminine from my complete conscious state into expansion of life. And who am I? I'm
mm,
but that essence of this play, where
mm.
we call it Shiva Shakti.
Absolutely. Very well said. This is amazing, Leanne. I can't stop talking to you. I mean, we had to come up with a lot of topics because you have got so much of insights and the wisdom that you have gone through by learning the scriptures of the older of all religions who have said, but it's not about religion, it's about people who have made their experiences count and told to us. But also to uncover those is a big kind of a task or a challenge, and to then understand the deeper meaning and then to create your own life journey based on that, or based on accepting everything that is around you and that you get, that inner awakened. So I think it's amazing. But I take this opportunity, Leanne, to thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. But I want to take this, and to all the listeners want to say that, what I learned from here in 2025 with this episode that Leanne gave us, amazing insights. Of one comes to my mind, which very strongly she said about, is the unity and the humanity and the humanness. These are the three vital words that we all have to uncover these within us. How we can unite ourselves to start with, as a yoga she mentioned about. Yoga is all unity, and unity is also first within us as well. So, our mind, body, soul, how we can unite ourselves, and then how you can invite other souls. But then humanity comes along with that, and then humanness comes along with that. So, I think these are three beautiful, powerful words I take for 2025 as my kind of mission that I live up to. And I hope all the listeners will also take something out of this conversation. So, Leanne, final message to all the listeners based on what today we did. This is your life journey. This is your self awareness that you have recovered, rediscovered yourself or reflected to us today. What's your message to the listeners? And a message with this about 2025 or from now onwards. It's not about the year, but from now onwards, every single moment, how do they should really be trusting? Where do they start in whatever they have at this moment? How do they start from where they are if they have not uncovered, if they have not discovered?
The most important thing is get in an empty room. Get
Wow.
empty. Just get into an empty room where
Mm-hmm.
you can get empty to start appreciating everything that's around you is an opportunity to take that consciousness into a manifestation of creativity. And the creativity is a choice that you have on what has an impact on getting closer to this consciousness.
Right, right. Oh my God, this is brilliant. I mean, this is a great start for any person to, because we are all, anyway, we should be always in that space so that we know there is huge opportunities, there is abundance of opportunities rather than saying, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, or there is nothing for me to do when there is so many to do. So you, all the listeners, please get into an empty room and really understand that what it is to be that you have got so much options and opportunities that you will be very short of the time that you have when to explore even or to create even those opportunities. Beautifully said, beautiful message. This is Leanne for everyone who is listening. And please do write to us if you need more info, and we will pass on your details to Leanne. And then let's create another topic for you guys to understand more deeper sense of, at a younger age or age doesn't matter, what Leanne has told us from her teenage, from a very 9, 10, 15-year old, what she was, how she was, but what she has transformed. That's more important. What has the solutions that she has given? So her solutions came all from that empty room. So please make sure that you go into that empty room. I'm going to go to that, Leanne. Thank you so much. And once again, beautiful conversation. We will come back to all the listeners once again to discuss more topics with Leanne because she has got the wisdom that we can even trigger any topic. So thank you, and thank you so much once again, Leanne, for this
Thank
beautiful
you so much.
conversation.
Yes.